The Oklahoma City Thunder get their first playoff series win since 2016. How did they do it, and what was this series like for Oklahoma City? We'll talk about it all on today's show.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod. First ever three-man weave pod. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be fun. It's going to be unscripted. It's going to be unfiltered. It's going to be everything. A little filter, though. Keep it PG. Other than that, unfiltered. Joined by Michael Martin, Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Derek Parker, InsideTheThunder.com. Technically, my boss on the writing side of things, if you want to get technical. But, fellas, first series win since 2016, covering this team through the rebuild, getting to the other side of it at a historic pace. There's a lot of emotions, and I think that to deliver to the audience, they deserve the raw emotion of this game. So when that final buzzer hit, Michael, what was in your mind?
Well, first I want to mention we're all in the same room, despite our various backgrounds here. I think I have the best one, but what went through my mind, the first thing that went through my mind of just like how long this journey has been of like getting to this point and just where we were the last time this team made the second round. And I think I tweeted out that like Shai was a junior in high school, Dub was a freshman, and then Chet and Kaysen were in middle school. But you know, it's been some dark days. It's not quite like a lot of other NBA rebuilds, but those 2 years were rough. But you think about a lot of those rough lineups and those nights with guys, but it's so good to be on the other side now.
Derek, you're someone who's of course been through this rebuild. We've seen this team transform on Zoom, back to in person, and now here on the road covering a playoff series and getting to see all 4 games of this series. For you, what's been the most interesting part of watching this team take shape?
I think, like you said, the inception of it came at such a weird time where there was the bubble and everything was happening. To Michael's point, I think the last time they won a series, I was a senior in high school. I was driving to my job as a lifeguard, listening to Views by Drake. Like, what a different era. So to be here and to see it all go down, I don't know if there's a specific moment. There's so many you could point to, but it's just a surreal feeling. And to do it the way they did in 4 games with the poise they showed, it pretty unbelievable feeling.
The Thunder win game 4, 97-89. The Thunder never let up more than 92 points and twice held them under 90 points. I don't want to get drunk on the score, as Mark would say, but this series, I know its opponent, I know its sample size, I know that you're not going to face a team as depleted as the Pelicans were offensively again, but I think that this series just affirms how confident Thunder fans should be in this playoffs. We talk about the future. We talk about the cap space and the picks and everything else. Forget that. Like the next 2 months, this team should be very, very confident of what they can accomplish because defense is the replicatable thing. Defense is more often about yourself than it is about who you're facing off with. Luka's going to be great. Kyrie's going to be great. Paul George is great. Whoever you end up playing in round 2 is going to be great, going to be better than this. But the disciplines and the effort that it takes to play high-level defense, that goes with you no matter who your opponent is, no matter what arena you're playing in, no matter what round of the playoffs it is, no matter how old you are. It does not take age to just give simple effort. And you have enough talented defenders that if they just give effort and they're constantly locked in as they have for 4 straight games, they're going to be able to limit almost any team in the NBA. And we've seen that throughout the course of the season. And then you also, on the flip side of that, it buys you time. And that's the story of the game for me again. This is the another game in this series. People forget in the Game 3 blowout, the Thunder had to buy themselves time to blow that game out. In Game 1, you were just buying yourself time to the end of the game, and you were able to take it with a Shai and one. I think that with this team, who can't they can dig in defensively and get themselves time to get a timely Shai bucket, a timely J-Dub triple, or a Josh Giddey transition 3. Like if you're going to have ample opportunities to do that, you can hang with anybody. Am I too drunk on how successful this was against the Pelicans, Michael?
I'd say I agree with you on some of the timeliness. Like 93 points, like that's insane to never get past that point. I look at it more from the timeliness aspect of every time they needed a stop and they needed a run, they got it defensively. So I don't think you're too drunk on the moment. I still think that I don't think that there's a team where I'd be like, oh, there's no chance they can't beat them. I think there's some teams where the deck would still be stacked against them, but I don't think it's crazy at all to look at any of those series and feel like the Thunder could either be a favorite or have a real punching chance.
No, I fully agree. I think everyone talks about playoff basketball ratcheting up, and the first thing you lean on is defense. And the Thunder have proven all year long that they're a good defensive team. They're not a team that was going to throw that to the wayside for the playoffs. They showed up for 4 full games. 93 is an insane mark. Like if you think about that in the context of the modern NBA, that is borderline unbelievable. And the way that all the guys did it together, Dort was phenomenal, but again, to quote Mark, it's not just one guy. It funnels into a full 5-man rotation. All 5 guys all the time were playing hard defense for 4 full games. That's inspiring. And like to Michael's point, that's going to give you a chance against anybody. That's going to give you a chance against the Celtics, the Nuggets. It gave you a great chance against the Pelicans.
It did give you a great chance against the Pelicans. The 5-man defense was as rich as a 5 guys burger. Derek, I think that we can get back to the big picture stuff, and we will later on in the show. But I do want to also bring up about Game 4. Every NBA veteran that you've ever heard talk about playoff basketball has all said to a man that the hardest game to win is a closeout game because the whistles change. The league is, it's no secret that the league benefits from longer series, and the TV partners do as well. And if you want to buy into that notion, fine, whatever, who cares? But it has been studied that the whistles are strange in these closeout games, especially when it's 3-0. The whistles were strange in this game in the sense of they had to play through more contact. This Thunder team, who for 85 games so far this year has not made a big fuss about calls, has not been animated with the refs. And you go to the line of there was times where Shai was animated, there's times where Jada was animated, there's times where Chet was clapping. There's a timeout that the Pelicans called that Mark just marched out to the half court, didn't even huddle with his guys in the paint first, just went right up to the ref. So clearly tonight was a frustrating night in terms of the whistle, but this young team fought through it. And I think it goes back to what we just talked about with the defense of, I don't care how young this team is. They're able to fight through moments like this. They're able to show that maturity even when things are going against them. This game was not going their way for a long period of time. It didn't really start going their way until the middle of the 4th quarter. But they just had that consistent resilience, and that's why I would probably pick, of course, the Celtics over them, and I'd probably pick the Nuggets probably still over them in a series. But just because you would pick them does not mean the Thunder have zero shot. This team this year can have a 2016 level run. I really believe that there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mark and really all the players talk a lot about how they feel the game out in terms of the whistle. They know which refs call which games which way. And it felt like tonight they really didn't have a good feel for it, even up until maybe that mid-4th run, and they kind of started to settle in, hit some shots. Things weren't going swimmingly. And again, just back to the poise of 20, 21, 22-year-olds, it's borderline unreal to watch.
Yeah, I would just talk about some of the points of just there's always an aspect with this team of it'll come back around. There's no panic or desperation of, okay, well, this isn't working. We have to just abandon ship of what we do. It feels like there's just consistency in that. And then to your point about playing these other teams, if you have a guy like Shai who can realistically be the best player in any series, you're going to have yourself a chance. And you have a great home court advantage. You're going to have home court all the way through unless you play the Celtics, you'd have home court against anyone. And you have a dynamic fan base who's hungry for this stuff. So the age stuff, I get we have to talk about because it is just so improbable that they're in this spot. But they keep proving us time and time again, and to quote Mark, that they are uncommon.
I just cannot wait for Game 1 of the next series because this fan base is rocking and itching. And they've only gotten a taste of 2 playoff games so far against the depleted 8th seed. Whoever walks into this building in Game 1, I would bet a lot of money on the Thunder at FanDuel.com/LockedOn because when you look at this team, they've been uncommon. They're going to have the rest, and then whoever comes in is going to be depleted. We'll have time to talk about the second round in a little bit. But getting back to the point about taking advantage of it or the game coming back around to them, I think part of the game coming back around to them, Michael, is that someone's always going to step up. And this series, the defense is going to steal a lot of the headline. And that's true. And part of that headline is going to be what we discussed earlier of it'll swing back to you're not going to hold the Mavericks or the Clippers to 92 or less points in every game of a series. That's certain. But Shai also only had one MVP level game, and neither one of these teams is capable of doing anything close to that in the next round. So what you lose defensively, you're going to automatically gain from just Shai being better offensively, and it's going to really offset at worst. And then with the pattern of the game coming around to the Thunder every step of the way this season, you look at a guy like Josh Giddey, who back-to-back games has 4 triples in New Orleans. Look what Lou hit defensively, and then the timely threes he's hit, and J-Dub and Isaiah Joe. You saw Payson Wallace step up for J-Dub last game whenever J-Dub went out. So on top of the game always swinging back to them, and on top of the defense biding them time, it's just very improbable that in a 7-game series you cannot find 4 games where you can get a Rubik's Cube combination of 5 to 6 guys that are hot that night.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this after game 3. You look sort of forecasting the future. Okay, whoops. But there's not a single guy who I would say is going to be a better matchup one-on-one as a defender for Shai the rest of the postseason. And you mentioned things sort of swinging around. The guys are always going to be stepping up, and that's a testament to Mark of dumb people like me have talked about shortening the rotation, and he's stuck with those guys, and you can throw anybody out there and it's going to work. So I'm right there with you. And I wanted to ask both you guys this. We've seen them in 4 games. We've seen 2 blowouts. I still think they can play better. I don't think they've had their best game yet. You mentioned Shai's only had 1 superstar game, but I think as a total, top to bottom, they still have like something. They have another level.
Yeah, 100%. Game 1, they talked about it. I think Josh talked about it after game 3. They were a little unsettled with that crowd. That a lot of them had not experienced that. And I think there's certain scenarios on the road that they hadn't experienced either. There's a lot of stuff that these guys just haven't gone through, and they're getting those experiences in real time that they can carry into round 2. I certainly think they can play better. I think, honestly, if they're playing a different team in games 1 and 4, things could have swung a different way. So I think they're going to have to be better. I think they can be better, and I think they probably will be better in round 2.
When you really break down this series, and it sounds crazy to say because the Thunder swept the Pelicans and never let them score over 92 points, but game 3 was a just rock fight until it wasn't. Game 1 and 4 was 2 games that you really labored offensively, and partially because you missed some really uncharacteristic open threes in both games. Like Wiggins had a couple of misses, Kaysen had a miss, Chet had a miss. Like all these guys had wide open misses in this game that if they were costly, we'd be looking back on it saying, oh, this team couldn't close it out. But in reality, there's open corner threes that you're going to miss sometimes. To have 2 bad shooting nights like that feels like a very strong anomaly, and feels like it's a testament to New Orleans versus a testament to anything else, or just the flukiness of basketball, to where you got your 2 bad shooting games out now, and you still were able to win, and now you can move forward in game 2, and the thing swings back to the average, which has been this is the best 3-point shooting team in the NBA. And so I think that when you look at this, they only had their fastball 1 time this series, and they won 4-0 in a year. Like that was it. Like they had one just unbelievable, everything's clicking kind of game.
One more point about the shooting. I know we mentioned after this game 3, they played 82 games as the number 1 3-point shooting team in the league. So 4 games is not a big enough sample size to go. It's like, oh, they had 2 hot games, 2 cold games. Like we've seen enough to know who these guys are. And I know the playoffs do kind of condense for role players, and it makes things harder and sort of the pressure. But I don't think a lot of these guys see it that way, as they're just going to get shrunk underneath the light in a real way where they just go from really great shooters to just nothing.
Back to the point about the rotations too, that kind of allows Mark, obviously he's not going to cut it to that 6-7 man rotation that people are rolling out, but you can feed into the hot hand late in games. If Jay Will is hitting big threes, maybe you can play him in a little bit of crunch time minutes. If Aaron Wiggins is the guy on that night, or if Isaiah Joe is the hot hand that night, you can roll with those guys. So there's a lot of variance, but the Thunder have put themselves in position to explore that variance moving forward.
We're going to explore a lot more about this game moving forward, including Jay Will's big night, and praise Mark some more because he won't praise himself, all coming up. But first, I want to say right now, about our good friends over at DoorDash. Check out DoorDash today because it's more than what you might think. They do not just have late night snacks, although it's great for that as well, which we might hit up at the hotel tonight. They also can get you these well-deserved and timely cover-ups. Derek, you have a special someone in your life, and there might have been a time or two in your life where you thought, oh crap, I forgot about this special date and I need a gift for her. And you sneak around on DoorDash, you can find that gift, have it delivered to your home, and act like you always had ordered it and it just got lost in the mail until now. And what a miracle it is on this special day. That's what they can do for you on DoorDash. Check it out today at DoorDash. Make sure you use code LOCKEDONNBA. Go there right now, order using DoorDash today. Terms and conditions apply, but when you do, you can save up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order right now using code LOCKEDONNBA. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Subscribe for free across all podcasting platforms so you never miss an episode. This is really strange watching you guys look me in the eyes when I do this. I do not like eye contact in the nighttime. But anyway, Michael, that was a bad. We might cut that out. That was not
super transition. Let's get into it.
I want to praise Mark a little bit longer. And when we talk about not cutting down the rotation, I think that couples with this topic. I was telling Derek this during the game. I really appreciate how Mark doesn't overcoach things. And he talked about that a little bit last week when we were discussing with him at practice, Michael, that the rotation and not knowing your opponent, how that impacts your preparation. And he mentioned that like it's actually in a way a benefit not knowing your opponent because you can't just overemphasize or over prepare and psych yourself out, so to say, with your preparation. One thing I like about Mark is that in the flow of this game, and we've now seen a 4-game sample size where at different moments, even that blowout game 2, it was at one point 12-11. We've seen different moments where things start slow, shots aren't falling, and instead of panicking and burning a quick timeout, he just lets the game play out. Because honestly, if you go back and review these games, and we all watch the games afterward whenever it's not live, so we watch these games multiple times. You go back and watch it, and you really break it down. The cause of a slow start offensively all 4 games has been you're missing good looks. So you burn the timeout for what? Like, what do you tell them at that point that they don't already know? Hey, hit your open threes. Of course they know that. But I think that there's a tendency from coaches, if the shots aren't falling, that you call a timeout and just dramatically change something, which oftentimes makes you worse than just letting these guys who have proven to this point to be a 57-win ball club, the youngest number 1 seed of all time, and be extremely talented, instead of just letting them work through things. So that is a very stupid niche thing to notice. But I really enjoy that Mark picks his spots very well on when he's going to take control of this game versus when he's going to let them play.
Yeah, we've seen it all season in the last couple of years. He's not afraid to make adjustments, but what he's not going to do is make a knee-jerk reaction and make a change just for the sake of change. And I would just say, building on your point of just not panicking, I would think it goes back to just the trust he has in these guys. And they've built it a two-way relationship all year, the last couple of years. And Mark has really just given those guys a lot of leeway, and he hasn't been burnt one time, so there's no reason for him to back off on it, but it's been really good.
Yeah, I think, and I got to be careful here, but I think there's a lot of coaches that are kind of successful via the players. A lot of times, like there's probably some coach of the year bids or at least people like that got it via the LeBrons and their respective players, but Mark Daigneault has earned absolutely every single one of this guy. Hi, Joel.
Hello, Joel Lorenzi, who's not joining the pod and instead whisking himself away to his room after rudely interrupting us.
What does Joel have to say?
That was a fun series, huh?
It was.
Why they pay you the big bucks. We appreciate you coming by.
That's the Oklahoman beat writer. Thanks for your analysis today. Great job. Great maroon suit if you're watching on YouTube. See you later, Joel. I'll knock on your door tonight.
Anyway, sorry, before that happened. Mark Daigneault is not one of those guys who's kind of the players have carried him to his things. He is a legitimate coach. Not that anyone needs to be told that, but in terms of adjustments, in-game coaching, sideline out of bound plays, like he is legit in every facet of coaching basketball. What you just mentioned is no exception. He's that guy.
His fingerprints are all over it, but he doesn't force his hand.
Right.
And I think that on this topic with Mark of not making knee-jerk reactions, to dig into this game a little bit, one of those reactions I think that I'm curious, and we'll debate this entire week. I'm sure that you both would love to join me on more pods this week. Who wouldn't? But one of those things that we're going to be debating this week is going to be Gordon Hayward, who he's given ample time to. In this game, it's a closeout game. He puts Gordon Hayward in the typical Hayward vehicle rhythm. He plays 4 minutes. He's not good. Again, no surprise there. But the Thunder pivot and play Aaron Wiggins 16 minutes and limit Hayward's minutes. They go back to Kenrich Williams for a couple minutes, which they had not gone to. They went to him in real live minutes, not garbage time minutes, as they did these last couple of games. But is this the end of the Gordon Hayward experiment? Or I should say, I don't think they'll ever end anything in the Mark Daigneault era. I think they'll never just flat out end something. But is now the leash or retractable leash where it's just super, super short?
I think it's an interesting discussion. I think that like the Kenrich thing is really interesting in terms of like him coming back in. Derek and I had this conversation during game 3 where I kind of made the comparison with Hayward that Mark kind of just trots him out there and it's just like, do you have it tonight? And if he doesn't, he'll move him back. But it is worth testing out because he is an accomplished player who can help your team in theory. He hasn't done it yet, but you don't want to bury him on the bench and just eliminate any chance of that happening.
I fully agree with Michael in the fact that he's also not going to kill you. Yeah. Like, he's not going to go out there and take bad shots. He's going to make good decisions. If he's hot, he's hot. But he's not going to play himself off the court in that way. So you try him, throw him out there. If he's hitting threes, great. If not, bring him back. He's at most a -1 on the box plus minus. It's not that big a deal. I would still keep rolling him out. He does have gravity as a shooter. He's a body you can throw at people. I don't think the experiment's necessarily over yet. Is it going to be successful? Who knows, but I don't think it's over just yet.
He's not the closing 5 guy that we thought he was going to be at the deadline, but that doesn't mean he can't find small ways to contribute.
He was a +10 game 3. I looked it up. I was curious if he had a negative plus minus, which +10 and a whatever point win. But again, he's not going to kill you.
He's not going to kill you. And I think that tonight showed, though, Mark's willingness to not just be stubborn and die with a ship. And it was not a Hayward night. It was a very close game where you needed to maximize every minute. He was not maximizing his minutes. And so you tried it and you pulled the plug. And I think that that's what you're going to do the rest of the way for Gordon Hayward. You've given him time to just say, here's your allotment of minutes. No matter what happens, you're going to play. Now it's in game 1 against Dallas or LA. You play him first guy off the bench, second guy off the bench, whatever it is. If he's miraculously aggressive and will actually shoot, and will perform offensively with what he's done defensively. That's been the biggest frustration with Gordon Hayward is defensively in this complicated, convoluted defensive scheme that has gotten the Thunder to top 5 defense. He's been good. He's been a really, really, really good team defender. You can give him all the credit for that. He's been really good helping the Thunder rebound, which is a huge issue for them. The one thing you thought you were going to rely on with Gordon Hayward was his shot making and shooting. He's been awful. He's shied away from every single opportunity. And while he does provide spacing just as the general threat being out there, it's still not enough to justify playing him over Wiggins, who does the defensive side of things better, and now the offensive side of things better with his current version of Hayward. So I think that you still play him in game 1. You play him his typical rotation, pattern. But the minute allotment is no longer guaranteed, and it might look like this, where he was one of the first guys off the bench, but he totals 4 minutes, even in a very close game.
Yeah, I mean, historically, you and I have been sort of the leaders of the Aaron Wiggins bandwagon, and I'm not saying it has to be like one or the other, but I think it is just the point that Derek and I were making of just like you have his initial rotation of 4 minutes, and you get a little sample size, and you go, not tonight. And you go and sit him down. But if it is there, you can keep going. But yeah, I mean, there's never going to be a time where you're going to hear from me that there was too much Aaron Wiggins tonight.
Yeah, I was going to try to play devil's advocate, but I don't think I can in this situation. Y'all got it. Y'all win.
That's why you check out Locked On Thunder instead of other shows that just make up stuff. Until our next segment, where we're going to talk about J-Dub in the fourth quarter. We're going to talk about Nola Josh, and we're going to talk about the rest of this game coming up. But first, let's say right now, but our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel's awesome. Check them out today. It's America's #1 sports book. Baseball's in full swing. It's the NBA and NHL playoffs. The Thunder in the second round for the first time since 2016. You can still place bets on the Thunder right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose when you bet on anything from shots to home runs and to slam dunks. All in the app, all safe, secure, and easy to use. Go there right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Get your first bet, and it's automatic win right there. It's America's #1 sports book. And when you go to FanDuel right now, there will be no Thunder game because there is no game 5. The series is over, and you've got to wait to see who their second round is. But what there will be, what there will be is a line on Wednesday's game. Mavericks, Clippers, and La La Land. Mavericks, 2.5-point favorites in Hollywood. Derek, who do you lean?
For game 5 or series?
We're talking about FanDuel's game 5, -2.5 for the Mavericks.
Game 5. I think Mavericks probably. I think Luka's had a tough series so far. I just cannot see that holding up. Tough series in terms of Luka standards. I will say, like, obviously he's been unbelievable. I think 28-point triple-double the other night, but the efficiency hasn't been there. I think he bounces back in a big way, scores a bunch of buckets, gets the W.
Fantastic. Check out FanDuel.com/lockdown. We're back on Locked On Thunder, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Our first ever in-person pod, ever in the history of the show. First ever 3-man weaving pod in the history of the show. I'm looking at people eye to eye as I'm broadcasting. This is very alarming and
It's intimate.
tension here. Nonetheless,
Joel tried to interject. We can't let that happen.
Yes,
We can't let that happen again.
in the worst moment of Locked On Thunder history. But nonetheless, Game 4 wrap-up time, silly season. First and foremost, J-Dub. What about J-Dub? I mean, here's a guy that's going to hit big shots in the fourth quarter. Blazing hot start in the first half. Very excited about the first half because my bold prediction of the game was that he was going to score over 30 points. 16 points in the first half. Thought, something's cooking here. No points in the third, but he has a bounce back in the fourth. And if you really want to get minutia of it, Michael, I think that is just another testament to this team of a third quarter the other way. J-Dub was just couldn't score. The offense at times was a little sloppy in that third quarter. The defense as well was slow in rotation. They come back in the fourth quarter. They had big shots, timely shots, and just get better overall. What did you think of J-Dub having another king of the fourth game?
It's become something to just sort of expect for a while. It was just this like sort of fun trend of like, oh, he's playing so well, but just time and time again, just his decision making and his shot making. And I remember Mark last year, we asked him about if there's any temptation to bring Shai back in games whenever things are kind of getting out of hand. He's like, yeah, we could do that, but the guys aren't going to get any better that way. And the flowers are starting to bloom with Dub in that way, and he's been incredible in some of these fourth quarters. And what's really stood out to me the most in some of these games late is Shai's willingness to trust him and get off the ball.
Yeah, I fully agree. There's no better analogy than time bomb. And you feel like that with a lot of stars. Like you're playing Steph Curry in the playoffs. You just have this like feeling in your chest that he's going to do something. He's starting to become that with Dub, genuinely. To Michael's point, it's like at first it was a fun little thing. He's good in the fourth quarter. He's been that for half a year now. He's been that guy. And tonight, the shot making on full display. Game 3, he's the one who jump started that run. If he's just going to keep doing it, he's gonna keep adding accolades to his resume. He's been as good as advertised.
It feels inevitable with him. Like there's some guys like you mentioned with like Steph, where even when they're cold, they disappear. And you're not going, where is Dub? You're just like, when is he going to come back? Well, you know something's going to happen. It's going to rear its head. It's just a matter of when.
And I think that is absolutely correct, that you're now at the point where this is the expectation for J-Dub in the fourth quarter. But it's still insane that a second-year guy in the playoffs, in a closeout game, is expected to do this fourth quarter. He does it, and we're just like, yep, that's what he's been doing. And it's true. That's what he's been doing, and he's been able to deliver on the biggest stage. And I think that it's interesting of the foresight the Thunder have had this whole time and the measuredness of this rebuild, even down to rotations in the regular season. Something that's been sticking out to me is how often Mark has said that if you're not doing things in the regular season to prepare for the playoffs and you're just having to cram it all in these last 2 weeks, then your entire process is very flawed. And you see it show up in that example of not bringing SGA in early than the 7-minute mark in the fourth quarter, even in tight games, even if it might cost you a game in December, even though it hasn't, even if it could have, because you want them to learn how to handle it. And in this game, you get the best of both worlds. It was a 5-point game in the playoff game. Shai comes back in with over 10 minutes to go because you have to win this game to close it out in the season. You want the sweep. You want Shai in there that close game. J-Dub was still in the fourth quarter because of the experience he got. You didn't bring Shai back in, and you had the MVP on the floor. So like it's all been built at this moment where you bail J-Dub out, this whole season and all of last season. We bail him out before quarter, and he never has to learn how to do this. He's not as prepared as he is tonight to go out there to win a closeout game.
We've seen this sort of the 2-star system for a number of years, and that's why so many teams want to do that, is because you want 2 shot creators or more. You don't want to have where Shai gets trapped and it's like, well, the offense is going to stall. And to your point, like, that's why Dub is ready. Not only because Mark's given him the opportunity, but like I mentioned, Shai moves off the ball and goes, I trust you. I think you'll get it back to me if you need to. And then Dub takes care of business in a real way.
Yeah, there was a play that stood out to me. I think there was about 4 minutes left in the game. Dub has the ball. I think Chet sets a screen. Dub drives by, ends up getting walled off. But to have Jalen Williams with the ball, Chet sets the ball screen. He gets walled, and to have Shai, a potential MVP, sitting off ball, waiting to be open. Like, there's 29 other teams that would kill to have that much talent
As a decoy.
As a decoy, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is over there. And it's just unbelievable to have that amount of talent and the age that they are. It's surreal to watch.
I think that it is. And I'm going to give a shout out to J-Will. I think he played really well off the bench. I'm not going to make you guys comment on J-Will. Charge drawn, 3-pointer, boom. It was awesome. What I will make you guys comment on is Josh Giddey. I think that there's 2 substantial playoff risers on this team that we've seen so far. It's Josh Giddey and Lu Dort. With Lu Dort, we've seen him do it as a rookie in the bubble against James Harden. So we have a larger sample size than one team. With Josh Giddey, it's been one team, one arena where he's just been fantastic in the playoffs against the Pelicans. What's your gauge in the sense of, are you counting on Josh Giddey to be a playoff riser in the next round? Because I am. I think that what we've seen from March 1 through now, what we saw in this series, even whenever the box score is not kind to him offensively in the first couple of games, you dig into the rebounding, you dig into the defense. That was all there, and the offense wasn't there for anyone, really, in that first game. So, like, that first game, no offense there for Josh Giddey. I don't really hold that against him too much. Ever since then, we've seen him perform close to that March 1st timeline than anything else. So I'm in on Josh Giddey, but I would understand if, like, maybe you want to hold out until he does it against a different team that he hasn't, that he hasn't as much success against as the Pelicans, because the Pelicans are like one of the teams that he just absolutely kills.
I was super happy for Josh tonight. Just the work he's put in as a shooter the last couple of years has been really cool, and just like rebuilding his shot from scratch with chip. I would say that I trust him a little bit more as a playoff riser, but there's still some skepticism. I think that there's not a riser, but he can be counted on. He's not going to be a non-factor or necessarily get just played off the floor. He's been much more aggressive in this. And to me, the biggest, I guess, thing coming out of this series, the takeaway for him is just his confidence continues to snowball in a real way with his shooting, where we mentioned with Gordon Hayward, the biggest thing.
Josh is not afraid to shoot. And that's the best thing about him right now
that's going. Taking and making.
I really
shots.
like the question you asked him tonight, Michael. I like the way you phrase it. In everything he's kind of battled through in his career culminated tonight. Like, he was cross-matched, he hit threes. It's things that have gotten him at one point or another that he's battled through. And it was just cool to see that culminate in a Game 4 closeout game on the road. Big performance from him. To Rylan, I don't know if I see him as a riser, but he's also not a guy for an entire series that's going to get played off the floor. I think we've seen him bounce back enough from enough things that, to Michael's point, you're going to be able to count on him to bounce back from cross-matching, to bounce back from a bad shooting performance. I don't think we're at the point in Josh Giddey's career where that's going to snowball in the opposite way.
Yeah, I think though Josh Giddey, there's a little bit also of just the intangible just edge he can play with in big moments, in big games. I think there's question marks in the sense of Dallas specifically, not to jump ahead and assume that they win, but if they were to win, Jason Kidd has shown that, like, in that game on TNT where it was only Kyrie and no Luka, he showed in that game that even though Josh played well in the first half, he's still going to, in the second half, his big adjustment was, let's just ignore Josh Giddey completely and make him a corner sitter. And Josh Giddey, if you review that game, it's going to, if you look back at the box score, it's not going to look this way. But if you watch the game, he played so well in the first half, but you just couldn't keep him on the floor because it's unfair to Josh. It's unfair to Josh to make him a corner sitter on the three-point line. By the same token, if you're the opposing coach, it's a pick your poison style. What better way to defend the Thunder than that? And so I think that with Jason Kidd's willingness to do that more egregiously, in a one-game sample, but that's all we have to go off of. I think that could be interesting in terms of like his overall statistical impact of the next series if it is Dallas, which wouldn't be any fault to Josh. It'd be just testament to how great everyone else is that's your best option. It's making him a corner 3-point shooter, which would be fair to him to leave him out there in that situation anyway. But a testament to the Thunder, to their team, is that no matter what Josh does next, which I think will play well. Again, I really do buy into Josh being a big game player. I think he's going to play really well. No matter what, you look up and down this roster, and they're deep enough to beat their second round opponent, whoever it may be.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was going to mention is just there's some level in the back of your head of just like, even if you're confident that Josh is going to play well, even if something goes bad, it's not like you're screwed where it's like, if Josh plays bad, there's nothing we can do. We talked about this on a pod like a few weeks ago of the Thunder could win 4 games in a series with a different closing 5 every single time. So if Josh doesn't have it, it's not the end of the world. You can throw Case in there, Isaiah, Jay Will, Kenrich, Wiggs, a number of guys.
Yeah, to again just touch on the raw and pure talent that this team has. Josh is the 5th scoring option, 4th scoring option on most nights, but he's a guy who, as we've seen, has the potential to put up triple doubles, go for 30 in NOLA. Like, to have your 4th or 5th option in your lineup be able to do that, even on nights that he's not doing that, to have that availability is incredible.
The Thunder survive 19 lead changes, 18 ties, get the sweep of the Pelicans. Only their second sweep in franchise history. First series win since 2016. We've now gotten a 4-game playoff sample size under our belt. Let's go around the horn with what we know now. Is there anything about your pre-playoff prediction that you change? How far can the Thunder get?
I think we talked about it, and I said conference finals, and I still feel the same way. And it's not a shot at the Thunder as much as I just feel very confident in the Nuggets. And the Thunder, like we've talked about long-term things, this isn't like they're one shot. So they're going to have a lot of time, and the experience thing has been beat to death. But it's going to be very valuable for them to get their scars in this sort of sense, but like in this stretch. But I'd say conference finals.
Yeah, I don't know if I made like an official prediction, so it's kind of a moving target with me, but I would echo what Michael said. I think conference finals is very doable. I think this team hasn't shown me that they couldn't win that too. Like I think that's fully winnable as well. Like we said, there's going to be nights where I think they can hang with the best of them. I think their defense puts them in a position to give themselves a chance. But I don't know. A lot of things have gone as expected for me, at least so far in these playoffs. I think Milwaukee, Indiana is probably the biggest surprise for me. Everything else seems to be going about what I expected, at least.
Yeah, that's certainly the way that we've predicted it here on Lockdown Thunder. I said that the Thunder would fall to Denver in 6 games in the conference finals. I think that it'll go 6 or 7 games, and whoever's the home team, if it goes 7, it's the Thunder that's going to win it. If it goes 6, it'll be Denver that wins it. I think it's very tough to win in the altitude and in Denver, obviously, with their pedigree. But if you predict a 6-game series, then any team can win that series. Like, if you prolong it that far, this team is capable of winning an NBA championship this year. And take that and run with it if you're a Thunder fan and enjoy this season of there is no pressure on this season. They can win a championship this year as the youngest team to ever win a playoff series. They can go on and win a championship, and they still have a mountain of draft picks, a mountain of cap space, and they have not done anything to dramatically shape this roster or even just simply giving this team time to grow. Like, this team has only had a year of summer development for Jalen Williams. With Josh Giddey, I think it's what's been casted over nationally has been how this is technically year 3, but this is 4 straight basketball seasons where everything has changed for him in the blink of an eye and down to his role on the floor. And so I just think that a more stable version of him next year would do him a lot of good. We've seen Shai in every single year. Case and you put on a list, like, these guys are going to get better just internally before you do anything externally. That just enjoy this ride because it legitimately could be a championship. It could be a second-round bow out. But whatever happens, this is just an awesome year because it's not going to be like that for very long. I promise you, even on this show, even on everyone else's shows, even locally, even nationally, after this year, expectations rise. And it's no longer this, like, fun. It's still fun, but it's no longer this, like, happy-go-luckiness of, like, now there's pressure of getting it done on the timeline and really digging into it and trying to go accomplish your full goals. Or this year, it's like still a baseline. And your baseline so far is a first round sweep. Like your first ever matchup in the playoffs has been a first round sweep. And that's really impressive. And you should just enjoy it as fans of like, this is the starting point for your run of 5+ years at least.
Yeah, this is the house money season, and there's a lot of comparisons to the older Thunder team. But what it really reminds me this season is sort of where the Celtics were at when they made that first conference finals with all those guys when they lost LeBron in Game 7. And immediately right after, the clock started, even when those guys were all pretty much the same age as a lot of these Thunder guys are. So I would echo your point of just like enjoy it while you can for this ride. Like The Office, I wish you could know when the good old days are. Like, it's right now. This is the time that you're going to look back on in 5-6 years of just like, remember how cool it was whenever they first like really took off? Like, it's now.
Yeah, just to echo you guys' sentiment. I mean, 2016, like think of how drastically things have changed since then. And it could change tomorrow. That's what happened for some of those Thunder teams of old too. You know, like people in 2012 thought there would be better days ahead and there weren't. So obviously there probably are for this team, but soak it in. Like these things just don't happen. A sweep, that's crazy.
Soak it in. We'll be soaking it all in on the drive back to Oklahoma after this. Thank you guys for hopping on our historic edition of Lockdown Thunder in more ways than one. Check out Let's Talk Thunder on YouTube. Check out InsideTheThunder.com to help me and Derek, and subscribe to Lockdown Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from. Until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.